Story 1. My uncle likes to brag that he got all the way through high school without learning how to read. Good job being stubborn and having teachers who did not care about you. Story 2. How many hours do they work? I hate seeing someone sacrifice their health for a company that most likely does not care about them. Story 3. After all these years, I was listening to someone brag and it just dawned on me how irritating it all is. I am trying to be quieter. Story 4. How little sleep you got the night before. Sleep is important. Take care of yourself. Story 5. Fighting how fast they drive, and that they have not wasted time reading anything since high school. Story 6. I know a girl who brags about the money her boyfriend has and how he got her several labubis. Story 7. Not sleeping or only sleeping 2 hours is not cool or impressive. It is dangerous. Story 8. How hot or spicy they can eat. I have a friend telling stories about how the Thai chef even came out of the kitchen to admire how hot this German man could eat. There are Thai toddlers who eat spicier food than you without thinking twice. By the way, when I asked the man at the Indian restaurant how hot is on their menu, he said he could make it German hot or Indian hot. I chose German. Story 9. Being late all the time as if it is part of their personality. Story 10. I have an above-average number of testicles. That is not very impressive. Story 11. People they have met before. I do not care if you once shook Dustin Hoffman's hand. Story 12. Anything people brag about usually is not impressive. As my mother said, if you are smart, you do not need to tell people. Story 13. Being born in or from any particular place is not something you achieved. Story 14. Not needing earplugs because you attend concerts frequently, also known as bragging about hearing loss. Story 15. Sleeping for less than 8 hours a day. Working for more than 8 hours a day. Being too busy to be reachable by friends and family. Never calling in sick a day in their lives. Basically, anything to do with hustle culture. Story 16. Designer items. I have a coworker who loves her Prada eyeglasses and would not have bought them without a noticeable logo on the side. The logo makes them look cheap. Story 17. How they ruin someone's life because they have connections. Story 18. How much do you want to bet I can throw the ball over those mountains? Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. Story 19. Cheating on a partner is not impressive. It only shows that you are untrustworthy. Story 20. Driving a manual transmission. I learned when I was 12. Everyone I have taught has learned how to do it in about 45 minutes. It is not that hard. People just have not had the opportunity to learn. Story 21. They know someone who is popular or wealthy. I am completely sure you never even crossed their minds. Story 22. Something about their body they can thank genetics for. Oh, I'm this tall. Oh, I'm this long. Oh, I'm this size. All natural, baby. You are secretly showing off things you didn't earn and don't control, making other people feel the need to do the same to avoid feeling inadequate. How about you start showing off how ripped you are after years of working out? Story 23. Passing a cognitive test designed for Alzheimer's patients. Story 24. One of my coworkers loved to brag that our supervisor had known her for a long time. I have actually worked with him longer, and who cares? Story 25. Travel. I have been to 43 countries and 5 continents. Story 26. Stuff they did in high school when they were well into their 30s. Story 27. Packing light. I know people who proudly boast about going on a 2-week holiday with only hand luggage. Good for you. Personally, I prefer to have a few changes of clothes when I travel. Story 28. Pretty much anything people brag about is not very impressive. Story 29. Heard a former pathology chief resident from the University of Colorado brag about getting through medical school and residency without reading one book. You could tell it was true. So unimpressive, and for some reason had a smug disposition. It is always the less knowledgeable ones who think they know the most. Story 30. Physical characteristics. Height, weight, bicep, chest, and so on. It applies both ways. Having a slim waist is just as impressive as having a large waist. It is not about the numbers. Those measurements are simply who you are. You are impressive, not your numbers. Story 31. The supposed size of a phallus. It is not like you did anything to earn it. Story 32. Their new truck, even though the bank technically owns it for the next 5 years. Story 33. Waking up early. What is so wonderful and virtuous about waking up? You went to bed early. Good for you. Story 34. When people brag about working so hard that they do not get enough sleep or eat properly, that is not good. It is not sustainable, and it is not a secret hack that only they know about. Story 35. Having a very expensive car but still living with your parents. Story 36. How far they have traveled does not matter. Seriously, no one cares. Story 37. Things they do not do include watching television or using social media. They define themselves by what they are not. Story 38. When someone brags that their child has never once slept in their bed with them, that is not impressive to me. I want my child to know they can come into our bed in the middle of the night if they are scared or lonely. Story 39. I think it was Chris Rock who said, "I take care of my kids. They are your kids, you are supposed to." Story 40. Mental health issues are serious. Lately, I hear many people talking openly about their mental health as if it were a trendy accessory. Mental health is important and not something to brag about or share with just anyone. This can be frustrating because it may diminish the experiences of people who face genuine mental health challenges. Story 41. Airline status. It is good that you spend 100 nights per year away from your family. I do not want to hear about your elite status or watch you treat airline employees and other passengers poorly. Story 42. The number of leprechauns they have in their basement cannot possibly be more than mine. Story 43. How much they can drink. I am from Wisconsin, so I hear this a lot. Guys, it is not a good thing that you can drink 12 beers and then drive home. That is called being an alcoholic. Story 44. Their children, how smart they are, how strong they are. So annoying. Story 45. It wasn't a brag, but he was definitely doing it to impress and look tough. A mixed group was at a bar. A random man slid up to join in. He seemed buzzed but not drunk. He interrupted everyone to ask who wanted to dare him to eat a cigarette but soaked in the dregs of a beer. Everyone said no and asked why. He did it like it was a magic trick. You could tell he thought he looked cool. Everyone else went back to talking. Then he started dumping a full ashtray into his mouth. I dry heaved and we scattered. It was really strange. Story 46. Their body count. Nobody cares that you were popular in high school, mom. Story 47. Amount of hours on a certain video game. Just get a life, brother. Story 48. How much they work. Congratulations on having no life, enjoyment, or time outside of your job. Man. Story 49. Things that they have bought. Clothes that they own. Congratulations. You spent money. Story 50. They invest most of their government financial aid into cryptocurrency because one day they will be rich. Story 51. The grind. I once saw a man who would brag about working over 70 hours per week. I applaud hard work, but working to the point of constant exhaustion and having no life creates a very boring person. Story 52. Winning multiple golf club championships that you own when everyone knows you cheat, complete with video. Story 53. Being an alpha means being a good, kind, and respectful human being. Everyone matters, no matter their race, color, creed, gender, culture, religion, or sexual orientation. Everyone deserves to be accepted and respected. No one is better than anyone else. Alpha, please. Story 54. A former colleague used to brag about how many hours he worked. Story 55. Someone thought I was bragging about my family living in our town since before it was part of the current county. I was trying to share family history and most enjoyed that I could tell them more about the county. Apparently, I was bragging. Meanwhile, they were talking about being related to judges and politicians in a different state. I didn't think my family history was impressive but kind of fun since 90% of people aren't from here. I guess I was bragging. I no longer mention anything, including the history of the county, because it could be perceived differently. I can understand that. Perhaps there was something in me that was proud of it. Story 56. Being a parent, specifically those with mother life car stickers or something similar. Story 57. Your perfect attendance at work or your children's perfect attendance at school is not impressive if you go in while sick. If you have sick time or paid time off but still choose to go in when ill, that behavior is selfish. You are risking making other people and their families sick, likely forcing them to miss work or school. Stop doing this. If you are sick and able to stay home without fear of losing your job, remain at home until you recover. Story 58. Having designer clothing items, shoes, and accessories is completely pointless and an absolute waste. Paying hundreds or thousands of dollars for a logo is unnecessary. You could take a vacation with that amount of money. Story 59. As someone born and raised here, I am from New York. I am from the borough. Story 60. Bragging about working long hours with no sleep like it is a badge of honor. Hustle culture has glorified burnout, but sacrificing health, relationships, and mental peace is not impressive. It is tragic. True success is about balance, not burnout. Story 61. How many friends they have. If quantity is so important, it is clear they care little about the quality of these friends. Story 62. How many hours they work. Lack of sleep or never taking sick days. How much alcohol and drugs they consume. Opposition to education. Self-diagnosed mental illness. Number of social media followers. Casual sex. Dominant male or high-maintenance woman. Intelligence quotient number. Story 63. One I have seen come up quite often in conversations comparing rural America to more densely populated areas or countries is along the lines of, I often drive for 3 hours to go to a good restaurant. It is like nothing to me. You do not understand how big the United States or my state is. They always imply that this is an impressive act worthy of respect. However, to me it often seems more like they are unfortunate to live somewhere where they have to drive that far to get to a nice place to eat. Story 64. Women who brag about going back to work immediately after giving birth or giving birth without an epidural. There is no other medical procedure where anyone would brag about not using pain relief. Story 65. To be hard workers. I am glad you are willing to work within this economic system that reduces your time and joy. Story 66. Money. I know someone who regularly talks about how much their monthly pension will be when they retire. Sure, it's a big number, but who cares when you are still bored? Story 67. How troubled they were on a night out of drinking and debauchery. Story 68. Whenever you say you are or were sick, there is always that one person who says, so you think that is bad? Wait until you hear how sick I was last year. What you have is nothing compared to that. Yes, nice brag, but you do not have to go very far to make me believe that you are sick in the head. Story 69. In the gay community, how many partners someone has had is often discussed. When a person is gay and has average to above average looks, it is not difficult to find a hookup. Therefore, it is not impressive and may even make someone appear less respectful. Story 70. Recovering individuals with alcohol or substance use disorders who frequently talk about their past party behavior, how much they could drink, or the amount of substances they used. Please reserve these stories for support meetings, as others may not be interested. Story 71. Having wealthy parents or having a wealthy boyfriend or girlfriend does not mean you have accomplished anything. Story 72. Working on their wedding day. Why unnecessarily promote this hustle culture? Story 73. Women often say they are a lot to deal with and need a man who can handle them. Why are you bragging about being toxic? It is not attractive and neither are you. Story 74. Not having watched a single episode of insert popular show here. Well done, you. Story 75. I have not cried since I was born. Okay, dude, get therapy maybe? Story 76. I am a Christian. I am just joking. I mean, it is okay to have faith, but there is no need to brag about it. Show do not tell. Story 77. Not wearing makeup because they think they have excellent skin. Story 78. How many times did they use cocaine off a sex worker's body in Las Vegas? That is actually really impressive. Story 79. How much they drink, go out, or hook up. I am convinced people who brag about having sex all the time are actually not having sex or are very bad at it. If you are over 20 years old, who cares? Story 80. Having a spouse and children is amazing. You did it. Story 81. Most of these are legitimate. Some are people upset because they cannot do what the person is bragging about. Story 82. How much they work. Jesus Christ, unplug for a day, you people. Story 83. Going to college or university is not impressive. It is normal. Almost everyone can become skilled at anything they repeat consistently over many years when they apply diligence, passion, effort, and discipline. What is impressive are those who succeed despite feeling like the whole world is trying to stop them. Story 84. They sleep very little at night. You slept 4 hours and are working? That is more worrying than impressive. Story 85. How many people have they dated? You just said that 15 relationships did not work out. The common denominator is you. Therefore, you are not good at being in a relationship. Story 86. Body parts. Being proud of things like the size of a body part or height is utterly bizarre when you have absolutely no personal control over either. Story 87. To me, it seems like any possession, usually a car. Literally anyone can buy a car through payments. Hardly anyone pays for a car in full. Story 88. How much money you have, you can't take it with you when you go. Story 89. I make a certain amount per hour or year. Story 90. Partying, losing virginity, cheating, rebelling against parents, breaking the law. Story 91. A car. Most people don't directly say it, but many judge themselves and others based on their vehicle. I drive a Civic that is 20 years old this year. I could buy a brand new Civic many times over, but the opportunity cost is too high to compete with people I don't care about. It's not impressive to lease or finance a brand new car unless it is $1 million car that no one else can afford. No one cares that you went into debt to get a nice car. Story 92. Staying up late. Like, bro, I can do it when I do not care about tomorrow. Story 93. There was a person on YouTube who was yelling about how being over 6 feet tall and earning more than $100,000 made him a high-value man. No one can control how tall they end up, so it is nothing to brag about. Story 94. Calling themselves strong and independent for doing basic adult tasks. Story 95. It really bothers me when people brag about going out and having a great time with friends, especially when I wasn't invited and could have easily been. My sister does this all the time. She invites my other sister to do something fun, then tells me all about it afterward as if she's rubbing it in. You should go see. Insert show name. My sister and I went and saw it tonight, and it was so funny. Oh, and then this guy at the bar paid our entire tab. It was amazing. I ask, well, why didn't you invite me? Story 96. Real estate holdings. The first one is difficult, but after that, you are just making low-income people pay the mortgage for your equity to leverage for more houses. Story 97. People brag about never missing a day of work because they went in when they were sick. Story 98. Being a father who is present in his children's lives is the bare minimum. Story 99. Bragging about how many people they have slept with does not matter if it is a man or a woman. It is just a strange thing that is not really something to brag about. Story 100. Body count, drunk driving, cheating, being a generally bad person. I could go on. Story 101. Had an old friend bragging, saying he is kind of a big deal. Story 102. Talking about your college or even high school grade point average. At this point, I need someone to flex their elementary school grade point average to complete the trio. Story 103. How fast they drive and how quickly they arrive at a destination. Story 104. Congratulations on driving yourself through traffic. That is impressive. Story 105. Fights they were involved in during high school, but now we are in our 40s. Story 106. How many feet of climbing did they do during a ride on an electric bicycle? Story 107. Money related, like large houses, large cars, large watches, large egos. Story 108. Their education. The more they talk about it, my experience says, the less intelligent they actually are. Story 109. I knew someone who used to post pictures of themselves doing drugs while they wrote. This costs more than your rent. They genuinely thought it would make people envious of them. Story 110. Money. Anyone who brags about money is not a person I want to know, whether they have it or not. Usually, they do not if they are bragging. I am not impressed either way. Story 111. Getting a dealership car at a 20% interest rate with a $1,000 plus monthly payment after convincing an elderly family member to co-sign. Story 112. How quickly women on Facebook can become your worst enemy if you cross them. Story 113. That they are brutally honest means you have no tact. Story 114. How much they drink alcohol and use dangerous drugs such as chemicals eventually catches up to them one way or another. Story 115. Real estate agents who brag about selling a house off market for a record price are basically admitting that they did no work and that the overinflated housing market sold it itself, but they will gladly take their commission. Story 116. Having traveled and visited many places, I personally do not find it very interesting. Story 117. I really dislike when people, usually men, brag about how angry they get and the collateral damage caused by physical outbursts. A teenager I work with was bragging about how much money he has had to spend on controllers because he kept breaking them. Story 118. To me, people who brag about how much they can drink are only highlighting their problem, I guess. Story 119. Solving a Rubik's Cube quickly takes talent, but the general ability to solve one is not a sign of genius. Instructions to solve it are included in the box. Story 120. Halo 4's campaign is complete trash. Disjointed, awkward, bland, and boring, with maybe 3 solid minutes of decent and coherent storytelling throughout the entire experience. They act like having a sad tone makes it utterly profound, but it does not. Story 121. What level are they in Fortnite? That is the least impressive thing on the entire planet. Story 122. Someone thought I was bragging because of the number of movies I had logged in Letterboxd. I just like movies. I am not trying to one-up anyone. Story 123. That whole gifted subreddit is full of really pretentious questions, and for some reason, it keeps appearing in my feed. I once interacted with someone who was looking for help interpreting results from a school. Is it possible to block an entire subreddit? I keep hiding posts, but only individual posts get hidden. Story 124. Anything you were born with, such as your skin color, natural body type, or family wealth. Story 125. New car. Okay. I hate car payments, and I definitely do not love all the electronics on new cars. Story 126. Claiming to be descended from some medieval king or historical figure. If you go back enough generations, the number of people from a given area who share ancestry with any one person is extremely high, especially when considering wealthy individuals who had many children who mostly survived to adulthood. Story 127. Adults who still brag about their sorority or fraternity. No one cares. Story 128. My wife lived with a man years ago who told her he was always telling his high school teachers to be quiet and go away. After she told me about that, I asked what he did for a living when they lived together. She said he was a stocker at a liquor store. He sure showed them, didn't he? Story 129. Guys who brag about the size of their penis. Big deal. I am not a woman with a vagina where you can insert it. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.